glad to have you here on a wonderful Monday for episode number 9 of the Monday edition of Onward to Victory. My name is Ella Wolter-Sánchez, and today we are down 1, but I'm still joined by
Noah Reed.
And Thanksgiving is right around the corner, but that hasn't stopped people from listening to Christmas music. So, stirring the pot today, is Christmas music before Thanksgiving okay in your opinion?
So it's funny because this was my question to you initially, but I'm going to let you all know right now, listeners, I'm fighting off a cold, so I sound nasally. We're getting through it. But this one, oh my gosh, no Christmas before Thanksgiving. I was talking to my family on FaceTime last night, and my mom goes, oh yeah, just checked in with Eli and Madeline. They just watched a Christmas movie. I was like, absolutely not. No Christmas before Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is a phenomenal 10 out of 10 holiday. Put some respect on the turkey.
I also agree. I love Thanksgiving. I honestly, I'm a big family person, and I also love Thanksgiving food. I'm not even going to be in the States for Thanksgiving, but I'm still having a typical Thanksgiving dinner with my family in a fully different country. We're still having a typical Thanksgiving dinner, and I have not started to decorate for Christmas or listen to Christmas music because Christmas has its whole month, and it's very interesting that, even before October is over, that, Target will bring out Christmas stuff, even though Halloween isn't over yet, and it's like, oh my gosh! And in the tiny dollar section, I remember seeing drumstick shoes or something like that for Thanksgiving, but that's kind of it for Thanksgiving decor. I feel like Thanksgiving decor kind of gets passed over with fall decor, kind of. You know what I mean?
No, and as someone who worked at Target, oh my gosh, the retail music switches from just regular music to Christmas music in a heartbeat. And my mom, she'll send me pictures of the Target that I worked back at home. And on, like you said, literally on Halloween, she's like, they already have the Christmas section going up. And I was like, of course they do. But, I will say, Christmas is an amazing holiday. Probably my favorite holiday. I love the theme. It's just a time to be, thankful and excited, happy, and just celebrating all these amazing things for a full month. There's no other holiday that has that kind of build up, with lights, with food, with family. It's awesome. So before everyone comes after us for defending Thanksgiving.
We're not the Grinch. Or what's the other one? Snooge or Scrooge?
Scrooge, yeah.
Yeah. So for our ASU team of the week, we have ASU hockey, and they made history in Mullet with ASU's first win, its first NCHC win in program history with their win over Omaha. And hockey began as a sport at ASU in the fall of 1983. However, they did just join NCHC, or the National Collegiate Hockey Conference, this year. And ASU had a season high of 44 shots in their win, and it was their third straight game to put up 40-plus shots on goal. And they had several key missing players through Dylan Jackson, Cruz Lucius, and Charlie Schoen. However, they still obviously pulled through in a great win, and they outshot Omaha in each period, and overall the game in 44-22. Overall, sophomore Dylan Hamovich was the star of the game with his goal that helped the Sun Devils cement their win. And fun fact, with his goal, Hamovich joined 2 other alumni, Josh Stone and Demetrius, I'm going to butcher this, K, as the only other Arizona-born Sun Devils to score a goal at Mullet Arena, which I thought was really interesting because I feel like we definitely have a lot of homegrown players in our Sun Devil athletics, and there's only been 2 other besides Hamovich to score a goal in Mullet Arena. So he also went his entire freshman year, he's currently a sophomore, without scoring a goal, but had scored 2 in the last 3 games. And goaltender Luke Pavlovich made 20 saves, which is the 3rd most for a game in this season, and ASU has 488 shot attempts on the season, which outpaces opponents by 128. And it feels a little wrong to talk about hockey without our missing member, but I figured it was a great, little nugget that they were able to get their first NCHC win in program history, because their season's been going on for a little while now.
Exactly, and I feel like Jordan would be absolutely furious with us if we didn't touch on this subject. So Jordan, if you're out there listening, we are covering hockey, giving them all the props they deserve. Because again, That's huge. A win at the NCHC level is, something that immediately as soon as it happened, I know my social media started buzzing because it's historic. It's something that should be celebrated. This team has, they had a little bit of a rocky start. Everyone was kind of like, oh, hockey's back. Like, what are the big things expected for hockey? They kind of little struggle to find their footing, but they're back now.
Yeah, definitely. And it was still a very close and very tight game. It was 3-2. So that goal kind of cemented by Hamovich kind of cemented that win. But it was still overall a great, they outpaced their opponents by 128 shots. Obviously you don't necessarily make all of the shots that you put out, but the fact that they outpaced their opponents by that many shots is quite an interesting stat. And it seemed like an overall great season and a great win to touch on.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just credit where credit's due. They've got some big games coming up next, right?
Yes, their next game is versus Denver on Friday, and their next game at Mullet. They had a sort of month hiatus before this Omaha game at home, and their next game at Mullet is Friday, December 6th versus Minnesota Duluth.
Well, rolling on over, we're starting to get to the tail end of some of our fall sports here, and this is a name that you guys who have, come back to listen to us several times, you're familiar with freshman Judy Chepkowicz. She punched her ticket to the NCAA Cross Country Championships with a phenomenal performance at last week's West Regional event. She finished 5th overall with a finishing time of 19 minutes and 36 seconds in the 6K, which ensured herself a spot in the 2024 National Championships on Saturday, November 23rd at the Thomas Zimmer Championship Course in Madison, Wisconsin. Chilly conditions to be expected. What are your thoughts on our Sun Devil cross country standout?
Yeah, we've talked about her a bunch, and reiterating the fact that she is a freshman, and we talk about her all of the time, and there's obviously a whole other cross country team, and we talk about this freshman that's punching her way through. And obviously, I went and checked out, after I saw that you had typed this out, I went and checked out the track and field Instagram, and she's all over it. And I definitely think that she is the new face of cross country. Every time they post a meet or something, she's on the back of the graphic. And so I definitely think that she's putting a new face on cross country. I don't really pay attention to cross country. I don't want to offend you, but I definitely think something like this and having somebody at the cross country championships with performances like this in the next 4 years, who knows how much better she'll get from here. And so it's definitely amazing to see her do this right now. And it's definitely seemed like she's increased and only gotten better throughout the time that we've been following her this season.
Yeah, you mentioned it there, the improvement, and I think the stat that stuck out to me the most is 10 years. It's been 10 years since the last time a Sun Devil qualified for the championships. That was when Shelby Houlihan did it in 2014, and she actually won the Western Regional that year. She was a really touted runner. She went on to go and do some stuff at the pro level, I believe. But Chepkowicz, again, she's got a pair of wins already. She's finished top 10 in all her races. But I think also, as I was diving into her story, she's fulfilling the goal of ASU head coach Ryan Ray. He wanted to build a program that could attract international recruits, and he got a true freshman in Judy Chepkowicz, but he also got her sister Eva, which I know this is, focusing on Judy, but Eva actually was the only other Sun Devil who qualified for the West Regionals. She finished 69th, and so there's still even just potential there beyond what Judy has. So it's cool to see that sister dynamic. But again, Judy is just head and shoulders above what any Sun Devil has come close to in the last decade.
I didn't even realize that Eva was her sister. I saw a few graphics that said like Judy and Eva are like heading to this, or Judy and Eva are heading to that. And I was like, oh, this Eva girl must be great too. And that's so funny that that's her sister. I didn't do much research into Eva, but yeah, and I think it's amazing. I also saw that the decade stat, and I just think that's an amazing hopefully new face to cross country with not just this year, but the next few years that she'll be here in Arizona, and hopefully that she can make a career out of it if she chooses to do so. for our ASU game, quite the headline game, the ASU versus GCU men's basketball game. This past Thursday, there was the Hall of Fame series for both men and women's basketball. The women's basketball took place at 4:30 and men's at 7, both at Footprint Stadium. And it was the first time that ASU and GCU have met at a neutral site. And ASU won 87, my bad, to 76. And this was an insane game. I personally was able to attend, and I did not have high hopes as an ASU fan because of the recent, how GCU is known more recently since they're entering in March Madness last year and all of that for basketball. I know they're typically like a baseball school, but I feel like they're also very known for basketball. And so I didn't have the greatest hopes, but the whole entire game, it was very close. And in the second half, it was mostly led by ASU by an average of like 7 to 10 points the whole time. And it was essentially a very close game. ASU went on a 14-4 run from the 13 minutes to about 8 minutes in the second half. And ASU shot a 53.7% from the field. And ASU had 21 points off of turnovers and 30 points off the bench, which I thought was really interesting. They really utilized their whole entire roster in this game. And the Hall of Fame series, for those who don't know, is a collection of non-conference basketball games that showcase top collegiate teams. So this wasn't just like the whole like neutral site thing wasn't just an ASU and GCU thing. It's kind of like a series of stops throughout the year that also included November 4th in Vegas, the 14th in Phoenix, November 15th in Baltimore, and December 14th in New York, and obviously a bunch of different teams that get to be showcased at NBA stadiums, which is a really cool opportunity for college basketball players to experience NBA stadiums, because obviously not all college players get the opportunity to go pro. And GCU, which to my surprise, I did not do research before the game, and I thought that GCU had a better record against us. GCU has never won a game against ASU, which I thought was so interesting. And we've played 4 games against each other, including the one last week, across the span of 1980 to 2024, and GCU has never won a game. And the last one before this one was December 13th, 2020, and GCU lost by only 1 point, 70-71. So it's definitely very interesting. And I crunched the numbers because I was like, I feel like GCU is a basketball school and we are not. So I added up our records from 2020 to now in comparison to GCU, and GCU is 64-27 and ASU is 48-43. So I knew I wasn't like tripping or anything, that we're definitely way GCU's way better at basketball. But what do you think? I know you weren't at the game, but what do you think?
Well, I actually have been following ASU basketball for a little bit towards the tail end of their regular season before March Madness last year, because actually I'm a pretty big basketball fan. Go Kings, by the way. Taken down the Phoenix Suns a couple of times, so that was awesome. But I think what's interesting here is, you noted Bobby Hurley's 200th career win, and a lot of people don't associate ASU with, being a good basketball program. But Bobby Hurley is, I feel like, one of the standards and the definition of a phenomenal basketball player, both at the collegiate level as a player, but also as a coach. And so I think it's really interesting to see what this program can become. We got a couple of really strong prospects. I know we've touched on them a couple of times earlier this season, but I feel like we're proving a lot of people wrong this season, and we'll get to this a little bit later. We're burying the lead for those of you who haven't caught on yet. But I would say that maybe we're not going to be known as a basketball school this year, but I was going through their scores, 88-80 loss. I know it was a loss. We lost to Gonzaga. Gonzaga is the number 3 school, and we kept them within 8 points. That is impressive. Gonzaga is no slouch of a school. They will be a contender for a Final Four spot this year.
Yeah, I will admit I did stop paying attention after that game against Duke. I was like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. Okay, this is ASU basketball, like a 100 to 40 point loss. Like, this is not good. And then I saw that the game was at Footprint Center, like, oh, how convenient, I can go. And I was just excited for a fun little match. And then we get there, the entire stadium is purple. I mean, except for the band and then the tiny little slivers of sections that are the, like, Inferno or whatever our student section is called. And it was so crazy. I mean, I know that GCU is also known for their student section, but it was crazy. I mean, every single thing that they did was coordinated to a T. It was honestly starting to freak me out. Like, every single time that they did anything, coordinated to a T. Like, not just the band and the cheerleaders, but the entire, and I mean, they had people in the 200 section coordinating with the people down here to a T. I'll have to show you videos after. But coordinating with the people down here to a T. And it was starting to freak me out. And they were starting to freak me out. And I was like, wow, okay, we're going to get crushed. And it's all purple. And this is embarrassing because even though we're at Footprint Center, it's a home game. And then we were leading by, I think, 1 or 2 at the half. And I was like, okay, maybe this is interesting. Like, I'm enticed. And then we won. And I was like, suck it. Like, I don't know. I was so excited. I was like, I've never been to, like, I think I've been to probably 2 Suns games in my entire life, or maybe 3, I don't know. And I've never been to a college basketball game. And it was so fun. And it was so exciting. And it was probably more exciting because we won. But it was just very surprising. I definitely think that after the start of the season and probably the whole GCU aspect, because I definitely was not the only one that was like, oh, we're going to get crushed, blah, 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 blah. I saw a lot of people posting about that initially. And so I think it was definitely very exciting and it was a very fun game for a lot of people. And it would be a cool little tradition if that was a possibility, like the ASU U of A game. But yeah, 13,705 fans in attendance to watch this Valley rivalry, and it was very exciting. So, yes.
Those are good numbers. And again, you mentioned the Duke loss, and Duke is a team that I have a little bit of a soft spot for just because you associate Duke with, basketball.
Yeah.
And last year, I really dove in for a March Madness bracket, and I picked Duke to make the Final Four. And granted, I know they didn't, but they got really darn close. And there was a brief moment where I looked like an absolute genius for picking Duke, which wouldn't actually sound like when you say it out loud, it's like, oh, come on. But like last year, if you know, you know. But anyways, moving on, we've got to touch on our Arizona high school prospect. And this week, we got someone who is just tearing it up on the flag football level. We've talked about the teams that are really good. This player is really darn good because Casa Grande High School sophomore Kayla Tacker has been turning heads. My gosh, let me just read you off some of the stats. 24 total touchdowns, 19 of those are receiving touchdowns, 18 interceptions, 106 receptions for 1,415 yards. Oh, and she's got 15 carries resulting in 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, how do you even have those numbers as a sophomore? She's climbed, to 14th, the school has climbed to 14th in the Arizona State rankings, led by Tacker. And I mean, I know we've touched on flag football a couple of times throughout the year with just the rise in Arizona. Arizona is a competitive school with flag football rankings. I was just going through the nationwide rankings, and I saw a couple of schools from back at home in California. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I just noticed all of the Arizona schools are within that top, I would say, 50 to maybe 250 range, which when you look at it on a national level is just insane. They're actually going to have another matchup on Wednesday night against the number 9 ranked Mountain Point High School, number 9 in Arizona, that is. They've got 14 wins and 1 loss, and that's again to the Casa Grande 13-3. That's actually going to be a really interesting matchup to see who comes out on top. But I mean, you were here for the inception of flag football. Did you ever go to a flag football game? 1 and 2, what excites you the most, I guess, with the fact that there's now another outlet for young female athletes to show what they've got?
Yeah, I definitely, unfortunately, have not been able to go to a flag football game, but I've seen its startup at my high school and how big of a deal it's been this year. And they were able to make, I believe, the first or second round of the playoffs, which was a pretty big deal in its first year. And it was really exciting to see because, I mean, excluding this year and last year, our high school football team has not been the very best. So having a flag football team that in its first year makes it to the second round of the playoffs is just amazing. And I was looking at these stats of Kayla's stats, and I was like, this seems very not average at all. This seems way above average. And, I know typically women's stats, like you look at NBA or WNBA, obviously, men's versus women's, just how your body works, women's are going to be slightly lower. But I looked up like average high school touchdowns. In high school, Tom Brady threw for 20 touchdowns in his senior year. As a sophomore, she threw 24 total touchdowns. That's insane.
Well, she didn't necessarily throw them. She received some of them. So there was. I know. But that's the other thing is she is a incredibly versatile player. She's listed as the quarterback. She's also a wide receiver, so she can fit into all these different positions. Which again, like you said, just is a huge shout out. But you said there this isn't average, and I don't know what it is. But I went in to their top performers because I lived on maps reps for a while doing broadcast stuff last year. She's not the only one who's insane on her team. She's got another sophomore on the team who is, I would say, not necessarily quite to that level, but she's got another sophomore, Laura Armstrong, I believe it was. I'm going to have to go back and dive. Lanice Armstrong. She's got 11 touchdowns, and she's got 878 receiving yards. So it's just, you've got these young athletes who are just, exploding onto the scene. And I think it's awesome, especially with the Cardinals giving them coverage. And I will say, the other thing that interests me about the Arizona side of this is your guys' playoffs haven't started yet. I know a lot of my California playoffs, like we're midway through, the state playoffs. So when do you guys normally crown like a champion? Because I was looking, and it's not until very late in December.
Yeah, I definitely think it depends on the division, because for my high school, we've already started our playoffs, so it just might depend on the division and, the amount of teams and that. And normally it's around this time in late November, I would say, because that's when fall sports end. So I would definitely say around this time. But going back to the female in sports perspective, I definitely think it's a great thing. And obviously, like we said, these stats are above average, and it's a great thing that these girls are starting to have these outlets, and obviously they are above average, and hopefully more people can start to see this. And it's great that they have, big companies like the Cardinals investing in them and giving them media time. But hopefully across the next few years, it starts to give, older women a chance to have something to do professionally outside of just high school or even college, because for a lot of, women athletes, there's not really much to do outside of college. It kind of just ends once you're in college, and you don't really ever have a chance to expand your athletic talents past that. So hopefully this gives another career option for women, and this can just keep expanding and expanding and expanding into something great like that.
Hey, well, speaking of attracting eyeballs, all eyes are going to be on Mountain America Stadium. You've been waiting. We're touching on it 23 minutes into the show. It's time for the final home football game of the season. Arizona State University is ranked for the first time since 2021, coming in at 21st on the AP Top 25 poll after defeating Kansas State 24-14 on Saturday. It's homecoming week. There's a ton on the line due to BYU's loss to the Kansas Jayhawks last weekend. They fell 7 spots in the rankings. They're coming into the weekend as the 15th best team. So we're 6 spots, and I did some digging on the history between these two programs, and oh man, it's intense. Because funny enough, the last time the Sun Devils were ranked and played a ranked opponent was back in 2021. Can you guess what that team was? It was BYU. BYU, in Game 3 of their season that day, ASU suffered a 27-17 loss to the Cougars. But overall, ASU currently leads the series, 20 wins to only 8 losses. But here's the stat that everyone's going to hang their hat on for the Cougar fans. They've won the last 3 games against ASU. But, again, we are 12-4 against the Cougars at home. And while their last 10 matchups, this is where things really get interesting. You take a 10-game sample, 5 wins, 5 losses. We are dead even.
Yikes.
Can ASU get their first win against Brigham Young University since 1995? Ella, what do you think?
I think it's going to be, last time we had this show, we said all eyes were going to be on ASU. If all eyes were going to be on ASU last time, all eyes are going to be on ASU this time. With our blowout win last time and BYU's huge loss last week, all eyes are going to be on this game. It could not be any closer. Before, if BYU had won last week, then more odds would be in favor as BYU, and obviously we're biased as ASU students. We want ASU to win, but honestly, from an outside perspective, it is outside-ish. It is so close to call. If just one of these factors had been any different, it might be a little easier to call, but it's going to be packed, it's going to be crazy, and it's going to be a very, very exciting game and a very telling game, if anything, and this can hopefully be the greatest game for ASU football this year.
Oh, I think this could be the greatest game for ASU in the last, half to decade at least, because of what's at stake. It's not just the fact that we are projected to come in 16th on the initial rankings for the Big 12, but if we win this game, we have a legit shot at a Big 12 conference championship spot. Obviously, that's barring Iowa, Colorado, seeing what happens there. But it is going to be so exciting to see where this game goes. And I know you put in there the ticket queue this morning. I'm expecting over capacity for this game. I'm expecting standing room only, the student section to be hyped. And oh my gosh, this is going to be either A, you're going to want to be there and say, I remember what I was doing and where I was when ASU played BYU in the year 2024. We're closing up on time, though. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Not really, but yeah, that ticket queue is giving me Taylor Swift flashbacks. It was insane trying to get tickets this morning. But thank you for listening to Monday's edition of Onward to Victory. My name is Ella Wolter-Sánchez alongside
Noah Reed.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.